Hello everybody, welcome to Nostalgic Idols. I'm Chris, also known as Retro Gaming Nerd, but most importantly, welcome back to Final Fantasy VII month, where I'm doing it. I'm this far in. So, the game we're reviewing today is interesting. What if I told you that Final Fantasy made a shooting game? You'd probably be like, what? Well, I mean, actually, no, you wouldn't, because the way today has gone, Final Fantasy could be anything. We just recently got an action Final Fantasy game, and I'm talking about, like, hardcore Devil May Cry-esque action, so anything is possible. But back in the day, if you told me that not only are we getting a shooting game, it's gonna be about Vincent, I wouldn't have known what to tell you. With that being said, let's get right into it. Is Dirge of Cerberus worth playing? Let's find out. So Final Fantasy Dirge of Cerberus is a weird one, right? Because it is a sequel to not only a game, but to a movie, and I would argue it's more of a spin-off, right? Because it follows the character Vincent Valentine, who used to be a Turk, but is now a vampire thing. I don't know 100% how to explain my guy. But the story is that there is a underground group called Deep Ground that was created by Shinra. They are a secret organization that was literally buried under the ground and have found their way out now. They are seeking the proto-materia, and surprise, surprise, our boy Vincent has it. So it is your job to really stop them from getting it from you. That's the best way that I can put it, right? Because, I mean, they do definitely take the proto-materia, and it is your job to get it back, yada yada. This game is weird when it comes down to the story, because if you look deeper at it, it doesn't 100% feel like a Final Fantasy story, especially since the people that are after you are called the Sviets, right? Which are color-based people. Their names are literally based off of colors, except for one, I think, which is Shulk, right?
Shulk, yeah.
Shulk is a color?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, thanks to Olivia. We're good. But their names are mostly color-based, and it's the way that these characters exist feels a lot like a Metal Gear game, and all in all, this feels closer to a Metal Gear game. It 100% does not feel like Final Fantasy. It feels weird, but also it does. I don't know, it just, all in all, the story is weird for Final Fantasy VII, and that's probably because it's more of a spin-off and following a character that, weirdly enough, isn't easy to come across in Final Fantasy VII. He's a hidden character. A lot of stuff about this game is just weird. They took a lot of weird choices, and it makes for a kind of weird story. That being said, I think it's time that we move on to the gameplay. Final Fantasy VII Dirge of Cerberus is interesting because it is a third-person shooter. And, it's a third-person shooter that works. I feel so conflicted with this game because part of me really doesn't want to like it, but I do enjoy it a lot due to the fact that they put a lot of time and effort into the gunplay mechanic. Since you are able to have multiple types of guns, a sniper rifle, a machine gun, and a handgun, those are the main ones you deal with. You also are allowed to have materia, way more simplified because it works more like a grenade in this game. But that's not all that Vincent has. He also has a melee attack. And last but not least, he's able to do a limit break, which allows a devastating beast mode to be controlled. All in all, the gameplay is very solid in a weird way, at least when it comes to Vincent. And I don't know, I just really don't know how to handle this game mentally, because Square kind of went above and beyond and made a decent shooter. It is not perfect, because the aiming is a little bit off and it's very hard to kind of control a little bit. But outside of, like, precise aiming with, like, the sniper, the rest of it's just fine. I think if I can complain about one side of gameplay, it is, for one level, you have to play as Cat Sith. And it's a stealth level, and it sucks. I hate it. It does not need to be here. But outside of that, this game is weirdly enough solid. I heard it being compared to Devil May Cry. No, but it's not. It's its own thing. And I think that that's kind of what makes it nice. All in all, it just works. I guess is the best thing, is that it works, and they did a good job at making it work. With that being said, let's move on to the presentation. I was gonna say that the presentation is odd, but it really isn't. This game looks like a kind of a PS2 game, right? There's a certain type of game that exists during each era, and you can point your finger at it and go, bada bing, bada boom, that's a blank game. And this sure is that. It kind of blends in with other PlayStation 2 games, kind of like looking like Devil May Cry or that generic RPG you see on the shelf at Blockbuster. And I feel like that's just kind of what this game's presentation is. It doesn't look a lot like Final Fantasy. It has the monsters, it has Vincent, and even then, you know, what else do you need? But when it comes to the visual presentation, I kind of get lost at it being in Final Fantasy. Like, there are nods to things like Loveless, and there's even a weird Cloud poster, but it just feels not 100% Final Fantasy. It reminds me more of like Metal Gear or even Enchanted Arm, which is not a PS2 game, but it falls into that vein of a generic PlayStation game, which isn't bad. It's just, I don't know, it just doesn't stick out to me. And I mean, I guess it looks good. I don't know. I don't really know. It just feels kind of at the end of the day. One thing that doesn't feel is the soundtrack of this game. This is surprisingly good. I forgot how good it was. Originally, I was kind of like, it's kind of basic, but that's what happens when you only listen to one song throughout the game and harp on it. The music in this game is outstanding, and I think the closest thing to the Final Fantasy genre is that how good it is. It's something that you kind of have to listen to, you know, because the music does kind of blend in, but when you listen to it on its own, it's beautiful. I love it. All in all, the presentation of this game is kind of a mixed bag of where the visuals are but the music is just damn. With that being said, none of this matters if you can't get your hands on the game. Let's talk about accessibility. So this game will set you back about $14 to $50, and even then, that is us being generous. This game doesn't have a consistent pricing because the Japanese one pops up, weirdly enough, more than the English copy, and the Japanese copy goes for way more, and that's probably because the box art's better. I don't know. It's a lot more beautiful than the English box, but hey, I don't know if that's the reason why. There might be like extra materials that come with the instructions, because Japanese games do have more stuff with it, but I guess I'm just kind of speculating here. You're not going to pay a lot for this game. I feel like paying $20 is not the worst you can do. I think 16 to 20 is the best amount that could happen. I would absolutely love to see them kind of remaster this game and maybe fix the aiming, but yeah, that's really it. I think that it's kind of worth its price. I do not think it's worth $50, but I do think that it is definitely worth about 20 to 16. Oh, and also it came out for the PS2, and also like the cell phone at one point, but I don't know about that port. So that has its own episode later, because I have a whole talk about that later on in the season, but whatever. Well, let's move on to the goods and the bads. The gameplay is the best part of this game in reality, like, and that's not saying much. The gameplay is the best part of it, and that's really it. It's very competent gameplay and very fun gameplay, which is odd because when I think of Square, I would never think of them making a game where the gunplay would be as fun as it is. There's not really much more to say about it. I mean, I guess if you like Vincent, this is your game. I don't know. It's all in all, the game itself is competent, but I can't really sit here and think about like everything that makes it good, because there is a lot, definitely, but I just can't sit to think of it. I mean, I guess the music is good. I don't know. All in all, the game itself is solid. Like, I guess the best way to put it is, what do you expect from a spin-off about a character that is a hidden, unlockable character? If that's how we're gonna put it, this game's outstanding. But to compare it to Final Fantasy, it's very much, yeah, it's here. It's fun. And I think that that's all that it needs to be. So, like, there's no real losing when it comes to this game. All in all, it's fun, and that's all you really need to take away from it. I guess if you're gonna, like, sit there and criticize every little thing about it, yeah, there is some issues, but, like, whatever. That isn't gonna stop me, though. Let's move on to the bads. So, like I said before, there's nothing really bad about this game. I feel like there's a lot of nitpicky stuff to it, such as, I'm not a big fan of the story. I don't really care. There's nothing that makes me really care about the story of this game. And that's really it. Like, that's it. I just don't give a shit. That's really where it comes down to. I feel like another bad thing is that I don't like the aiming radical in this game. I feel like I should have talked about that in presentation, but goddamn does it take up a lot of the screen, and it's just like, I don't get it. I absolutely don't get why it's so goddamn big. And I'm not talking about like the aiming apparatus itself. I'm talking about there's another circle around it. You know what I'm talking about because it's on the screen, hopefully. But like, I don't like it. It just takes up too much. You could just have the radical and be good. And last but not least, I'm not a big fan of the sniping, but you don't have to do it much. There's one level where you do have to snipe, but even then, it doesn't really matter. With all that being said, though, I feel like, once again, these are more of a nitpicky kind of takes, and I think that that's kind of what we're going to be with most of the games and media here with Final Fantasy VII, is because I love this stuff, but I feel like most of it's nitpicks that a normal person just wouldn't give a shit about. So, with that being said, let's move on to the final thoughts. Was Final Fantasy VII Dirge of Cerberus worth playing? Yeah? Yeah, it kind of is. I think it's more fun than anything else. I can't say that it is the greatest game of all time. If anything, it is kind of generic. It looks like a PS2 game. It feels like a generic PlayStation 2 game. But that's kind of what makes it fun. It is in the essence of the era. I absolutely think that this game was way more fun than I thought it would be. I thought that going into this one would be a drag, but instead, I enjoyed it more than I really thought I would. I think that it's worth playing, especially even if you don't like Final Fantasy, because you can play this game and not know anything about Final Fantasy, to be honest. You can just pick this game up, think it looks cool, and play it. Blows my mind that you can do that with this game. This is crazy. You can miss Vincent in the classic game, and yet they put more effort into his game than most of the shit in this review. I'm serious. Like, I mean, I don't mean that with like Crisis Core. That has effort, but like the books and I'm bullshitting. I guess what I'm trying to say is this game surprised me so much. I didn't think it'd be that good, honestly. I thought it would just be okay. With that being said, we're done. We're done. We're done with the classics. This is it. This is the end of at least Final Fantasy as we knew it. Dirge of Cerberus was the ending. We had to wait a long time. And to be honest, we didn't know if we were gonna get the Final Fantasy VII Remake. It was teased. They said that it wasn't real. And then it happened. So let's find out if that's worth your time. Where next time, we review and end Final Fantasy VII month, technically, with Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'll see you there.